Chapter 17, Immortal. Professor Zeng's heart tightened. Logically, he should not reveal what was inside the box. However, the youth before them had saved their lives and clearly possessed immense strength. Under such circumstances, there was no need for secrecy. It was better to be forthright. He stopped Chu Xuan and Sun Men from stepping in front of him and spoke earnestly. Inside here is a level 3 psionic core, sourced from a level 3 zombie bear. I implore you not to take it away. It is very useful for our Life Science Research Institute. With it, we might be able to develop a weapon to combat the zombies, a great boon for the whole world. Chu Xuan was puzzled. When did I say I wanted to take it away? Professor Zeng paused. You don't want it. This is a level 3 psionic core. Chu Xuan chuckled lightly. To me, it's no different from a glass bead on the ground. Let me see, he said, reaching out his hand. Professor Zeng hesitated for a moment but then passed the box over. He had lived a long life and met many people. The youth's demeanor carried a pride that seemed genuinely indifferent to the psionic core. Chu Xuan opened the box and saw a red bead lying quietly at the bottom. At first glance, it didn't seem much different from a glass bead. But upon closer inspection, he immediately detected a trace of energy within the bead. The nature of this energy was vastly inferior to spiritual qi. Though substantial in quantity, if compared, it would just barely match the spiritual qi found in a small spiritual stone. After only a few looks, Chu Xuan put the item back in the box and shook his head slightly. The so-called level 3 psionic core only had as much energy as a small spiritual stone. He was beginning to get an idea of Blue Star's supernatural system. You too, are you level 1 superhumans? Military background? Chu Xuan's gaze fell on the two men in black. He could tell from their coordinated actions that such synergy was unlikely to be honed outside of a military environment. The two men exchanged a glance and nodded. Xuanqiong spoke earnestly. We are from the Linjian Army of Linjian Province, tasked with retrieving the zombie bear's psionic core and ensuring Professor Zeng's safe evacuation. Chu Xuan nodded slightly. Even with the zombie crisis and the advent of the apocalypse, as long as humanity had not been extinguished, there would at least be nations and powers still existing. Clearly, the official power of the Han dynasty still held sway. Who is supposed to evacuate you? Chu Xuan asked casually. Sun Meng replied, Black Blade Security Company. They will use a helicopter to get us out. Chu Xuan nodded. Why haven't they come? Xuanqiong replied with a helpless expression. Their helicopter hadn't been used in a long time and needed repairs, so our originally scheduled meeting time was at noon. But we were besieged by a large number of zombies and had to send a distress signal early to ask them to come sooner. It might be because of that delay. The two men exchanged a look and sighed lightly. Black Blade Security was, after all, just a local force and couldn't compare to the strictly disciplined and orderly Linjian army. Their own deaths mattered little, but not being able to return the level 3 psionic core would be a tremendous loss for the entire Linjian province. Chu Xuan smiled slightly. You've attracted so many zombies, which is very useful to me. Help me with one thing, and I will ensure your safe departure. Professor Zeng and the two soldiers were taken aback. Professor Zeng widened his eyes. Please tell us. We will definitely help. After speaking, he felt he might have promised too much and quickly added, but we can't do anything against the rules. That's our bottom line. Chu Xuan chuckled. You don't need to do much, just continue standing on this rooftop and keep attracting the zombies. That's enough. With the solid rock talisman, that door won't be broken. Professor Zeng and the two soldiers exchanged doubtful glances. Continue to attract zombies. What did this young man want to do? They racked their brains but couldn't fathom Chu Xuan's intentions, so they decided not to overthink it. Professor Zeng nodded. This task is not difficult, we can do it. Chu Xuan gave a nod of approval. The next moment, he rose on his sword. A fierce wind whipped up on the rooftop, making it impossible for the three men to keep their eyes open. When they managed to see clearly again, Chu Xuan was already soaring in the sky. Professor Zeng and the others were utterly astonished. When Chu Xuan first appeared, they hadn't seen clearly. But now, they had watched with their own eyes as Chu Xuan flew into the sky. What was this? Sword flight? Wasn't that something only found in cultivation novels? It was now happening right before their eyes. Xuan swallowed hard, flight through the void. That's not something humans can do. Sun Meng said in awe, could he be a cultivator? Professor Zeng's heart was in turmoil. He felt as if his worldview, already reshaped once by the zombie crisis, was collapsing again. This must be reported immediately when we return. A cultivator? Our Linjiang province actually has a cultivator. Professor Zeng's aged fingers trembled uncontrollably. Elsewhere, Chu Xuan soared through the skies, searching for the ideal location to set up his formation. The blood refining array required 18 array flags. He needed to position these flags at 18 specific points and embed spirit stones within them. Finally, the array would be activated through an array disk. Although Chu Xuan's proficiency in formation arts was only average, he was willing to invest the effort, enabling him to set up the blood refining array. Within half an hour, he had all 18 array flags properly positioned. From above, the flags around the unfinished building formed an 18-sided polygon, encapsulating the vast majority of zombies in the vicinity. Chu Xuan had asked Professor Zeng and the others to remain on the rooftop precisely to keep attracting zombies, preventing them from wandering aimlessly. After completing these tasks, Chu Xuan returned to the rooftop. At that moment, Professor Zeng and the others were nibbling on protein energy bars. Seeing Chu Xuan return, they quickly stood up. Follow me, one at a time, Chu Xuan instructed, reaching for Professor Zeng first. His flying magic tool could only carry one extra person. The two soldiers instinctively stepped forward, intending to shield Professor Zeng. Their orders were to ensure his absolute safety. However, Professor Zeng, anticipating their reaction, held back their hands and gave them a knowing look, halting them. They realized something important. With Chu Xuan's strength, eliminating them would be effortless. Yet, he had still chosen to honor his promise to lead them to safety. Distrusting him at this juncture could provoke his ire. Let's go, young friend, Professor Zeng said cheerfully. Chu Xuan gave a half-smile. With his keen perception, he immediately understood the implications behind Professor Zeng's actions. Yet, he chose not to address it. The trio had assisted him in attracting a large number of zombies, which put him in a good mood. Keeping his promise to escort them away was the right thing to do. Soon, Chu Xuan had transported each of them from the unfinished building and set them down in a nearby open square. Contact your rescue team, I have other matters to attend to, Chu Xuan said, gesturing for them to leave. Thank you, Professor Zeng bowed deeply, unable to resist asking, may I have your name? Chu Xuan. Thank you, young friend Chu Xuan. I, Zeng Baoshan, will always remember the life-saving grace you've shown us today. With another bow, Professor Zeng then left under the escort of Xuan and Sun Men. Chapter 18, Great Virtue. Golden flowers cascading. Chu Xuan cast a fleeting glance at the receding figures, then turned his attention to more pressing matters, the activation of the blood refining array. He ascended on his flying sword to midair and gazed down upon the zombies clustered within the unfinished building like headless flies and activated the array disk. A peculiar blood light burst forth from 18 points, swiftly engulfing the entire area. Within the blood refining array, everything was shrouded in a murky, crimson haze, obscuring all clarity. Every living creature within was visibly drained of its blood essence at a visible rate. The zombies, initially howling with vigor, quickly wilted as their lifeblood was extracted. In less than 3 minutes, one after another turned into mummified corpses and collapsed to the ground. The process continued, second, third, fourth. All the blood essence converged towards the array disk, coalescing naturally into fist-sized blood pearls. Chu Xuan, poised on his flying sword in midair, felt a surge of exhilaration. The efficiency was astounding. Soon, the blood essence of all the zombies within the area had been completely drained by the blood refining array, and the spirit stones within the 18 array flags were also exhausted. Upon inspection, Chu Xuan noticed 13 large blood pearls had formed on the array disk. Each was ruby red and glossy, resembling red jade agates, and emitted a faint scent of blood. Chu Xuan couldn't help but marvel at them. Each of these 13 large blood pearls was the size of a fist and of superior quality, each worth at least 20 smaller pearls. These 13 large blood pearls should suffice for my cultivation up to the 9th level of Qi refining, Chu Xuan nodded slightly. Just as he was about to depart, he suddenly noticed a strange phenomenon in the sky. A plethora of golden light spontaneously appeared, forming myriad golden flowers that cascaded from the sky and swirled around him. This spectacle lasted for about 5 minutes before gradually subsiding. Chu Xuan was astonished. Golden flowers cascading. Wasn't such a phenomenon supposed to herald those endowed with great virtue? Why had it descended upon him? After a brief moment of surprise, he suddenly recalled. He had just slaughtered thousands of zombies, not sure exactly how many, but certainly over 3,000. Killing each zombie garnered a small amount of merit. The accumulation of such merit had triggered this spectacle of golden flowers cascading. Chu Xuan's expression turned peculiar. Demonic cultivators, great virtue, golden flowers cascading. These terms should never be associated together. Every demonic cultivator carried a myriad of karmic debts. Not summoning celestial thunder was already fortunate. And yet, great virtue. Golden flowers cascading. Such contradictions made him reflect on the unexpected and peculiar path his actions had forged. Among all demonic cultivators throughout the ages, perhaps I am the only one to have ever drawn forth such a manifestation of merit, Chu Xuan mused with a wry smile. At that moment, all the golden flowers were absorbed into his body. Chu Xuan blinked, suddenly feeling his thoughts become extraordinarily clear. The difficulties he had encountered while cultivating the blood spirit technique now seemed to unravel effortlessly, as if divine clarity had been bestowed upon him. Problems that were once insurmountable now easily found their solutions. Moreover, he discovered something indescribable and profound within himself: increased longevity and fortune, the true benefits of accruing merit. His comprehension soared, his fortune wrapped tightly around him, and his lifespan expanded. The accumulation of merit from his previous slaying of zombies had now catalyzed a profound transformation. No wonder those righteous cultivators clamor daily about eradicating evil and acting as the agents of heaven. They covet such abundant merit. Chu Xuan had an epiphany. If I were to deploy a blood refining array in the future, sacrificing tens of thousands, millions, or even hundreds of millions of zombies, wouldn't the merit flood towards me, unstoppable, enhancing my wisdom, fortune, and lifespan immensely? The thought of such future possibilities brought a gleeful expression to his face. This planet, Blue Star, was truly a paradise for demonic cultivators. Chu Xuan quickly collected the array flags and departed on his flying sword. With so many blood pearls acquired, it was time for him to cultivate earnestly. After Chu Xuan left, a helicopter roared overhead, carrying Zheng Baoshan, Zhuang Qiong, Sun Men, and the pilot, who was also a team leader at Haifeng Security Company, Wen Yun. Professor Zhen, as soon as we received your distress signal, we hurried over here. Unfortunately, the helicopter hadn't been flown in a long time, and we were lacking spare parts, which delayed the repairs, Wen Yun explained apologetically. Zhuang Qiong scoffed. If it weren't for someone else saving us, we would have already perished in East Lake City. Delaying the Institute's research and throwing you out to feed the zombies wouldn't even begin to compensate. Wen Yun offered an awkward smile. Yes, you're right. He attempted to ingratiate himself with Professor Zhen, but the elder man turned his face away, giving Wen Yun not a single glance for the entire journey. Wen Yun was visibly uncomfortable. As he was about to say something more, he suddenly pointed toward the unfinished building ahead and exclaimed, "My heavens, what happened here?" Zheng Baoshan and the others followed his gaze and recognized the building where they had previously stayed. However, the structure, which had been teeming with thousands of zombies just a short while ago, now lay eerily silent. A closer inspection revealed countless desiccated corpses strewn about haphazardly. These zombies, which had been lively and energetic not long ago, were now dead. And their deaths were peculiarly unsettling. "Stop, I need to go down and look," Zheng Baoshan said sternly. Wen Yun hesitated, but there might still be zombies hiding below. "I said I want to go down." Zheng Baoshan fixed his gaze on Wen Yun, his voice icy and deliberate. Wen Yun dared not offend further and quickly lowered the helicopter. Moments later, under the protection of Zhuang Qiong and Sun Men, Zheng Baoshan approached the outside of the unfinished building. Now, standing closer, they could see the skeletal remains scattered everywhere. Zhuang Qiong pulled out a military knife and sliced open a corpse, finding not a trace of blood. With a slight squeeze, the remains crumbled into debris as fine as gravel, as if all the blood and moisture had been extracted. How could this have been done? Zheng Baoshan was speechless. Only about half an hour had passed since they had left, and now thousands of zombies here had been drained of blood. Such a feat was beyond human capability. Could it have been that cultivator? Sun Men whispered. Recalling Chu Xuan's actions and demeanor from earlier, Xing Baoshan nodded gravely. It's very likely him. This is too important. We need to hurry back and report this to General Yi. Yes, Zhuangqiang and Sun Men nodded emphatically. Chapter 19, the 7th level of Qi Refining, Spell of Nether Fire Orb. In the Haodai Hotel, Chu Xuan returned as dusk had already settled. He fetched a bucket of instant noodles and 2 cans of beef, preparing his evening meal. As cultivators advance in their cultivation, reaching the foundation establishment stage allows them to subsist on ethereal nourishment, consuming the mist and dew, severing earthly ties to mundane sustenance. However, Chu Xuan had not yet reached the foundation establishment stage. Besides, having not indulged in instant noodles for over 20 years, what harm was there in enjoying them now? Zhao Hong's little storehouse was piled high with instant noodles, alongside a variety of chocolates and biscuits, all long-lasting food supplies. Enough for Chu Xuan to feast heartily. The bathtubs were now silent. Chu Xuan sent Hu and Bao, along with 2 spirit hounds, out to hunt independently, instructing them to bring back a few lively zombies to serve as spiritual plant furnaces. He commanded Hu and Bao not to prey on living humans at random, prioritizing zombies instead. Should they slaughter innocent mortals, the sin would inevitably fall upon him. He was not prepared to see the merits he had just gained vanish in the blink of an eye. After issuing his orders, Hu and Bao howled in unison, signifying their understanding. Beside them, Daho and Erho remained silent until Hu kicked them, sending them flying with a yelp. The 2 spirit hounds whined but quickly nodded in agreement. Watching them leave, Chu Xuan sat down cross-legged to absorb the great blood orb. The fist-sized orb hovered before him, strands of bloody qi entering his nostrils, circulating within his body according to the pathways of the blood-spirit technique. With each complete circulation, Chu Xuan's spiritual qi grew stronger. 2 days later, his aura suddenly broke through a bottleneck. It was as if a fish had entered the sea, freely swimming. His eyes snapped open, a look of joy spreading across his face. The 7th level of qi refining. At this level, he was considered to be in the late stages of qi refining. The 7th level of the blood-spirit technique, and a new spell to try. His repertoire of spells, minus those lacking defensive capabilities, included only the Spirit Blood Shield from the 4th level of the Blood Spirit technique, a mid-tier defensive spell of the Qi refining stage. Most of the time, he relied on undead soldiers and GU insects for defense. Now, having mastered the 7th level of the Blood Spirit technique, he possessed a powerful superior spell. Chu Xuan stood abruptly, his palms gathering spiritual qi. Gradually, a chilling green flame coalesced in his palm. At a certain moment, when the green flame had swelled to its limit, Chu Xuan fiercely thrust it forward. With a loud bang, the wall was suddenly blasted open, sending debris scattering everywhere. Around the edges of the hole, the eerie green flames continued to burn for over 10 minutes before gradually subsiding. Chu Xuan raised an eyebrow. True to its reputation as a superior spell of the Qi refining stage, its power was formidable. This spell was named Nether Fire Orb. The Infinite Sect boasted 4 Qi refining stage techniques, each with corresponding superior attack spells, 9 in total. Among them, Nether Fire Orb was undoubtedly the most powerful. However, it had a critical flaw: the charging time was too long, and it consumed a great deal of spiritual qi. With his current reserves, Chu Xuan could only cast it 3 times. During the charging period, he was vulnerable to attack. If the spell failed to hit the target, the consequences would be dire, likely leaving him in a defensive position. Nevertheless, Chu Xuan was not overly concerned about missing his target. With many undead soldiers under his command, he could effectively restrict the enemy's movements. The blood steel wire also possessed the innate spell of blood binding, making it easier to control foes. Excellent, I should practice more and master the Nether Fire Orb, he mused. As Chu Xuan prepared to continue practicing the Nether Fire Orb, a noise came from the direction of the bathtub. Growling, a corpse puppet climbed out and respectfully approached Chu Xuan. Soon, the other corpse puppets also awakened and gathered around him. Chu Xuan had earlier mixed his blood into their corpse refining elixir. Although it was not his essence blood, it had preemptively bound them to him, and that explained their respectful behavior. Chu Xuan took them back into the corpse nurturing tower and performed an identification technique. The results were somewhat disappointing. All 16 corpses possessed inferior qualities and their spells were lackluster. The leak technique, allowing them to pounce forward over distances, and the jump technique, enhancing their jumping abilities, were the more useful ones. Other corpse puppets possessed such spells as the rapid eating technique, which accelerated their eating speed, the water storage technique, which allowed them to store water in their stomachs, and the purification technique, which could purify wastewater. Chu Xuan even discovered a self-destruct technique in one, which would rush into battle and self-detonate. He resignedly issued an order forbidding this particular corpse from ever using its spell. I've painstakingly used refining elixirs and devoted effort to raise you, and you would explode at the slightest provocation in battle. How is that reasonable? Has this one not awakened yet? Chu Xuan approached the bathtub at the front. Inside it lay the body of Zhao Hong, yet only a thin layer of the corpse refining elixir remained. While the other corpse puppets had already emerged, Zhao Hong had not. Chu Xuan was actually pleased by this delay. It was a good sign, indicating that Zhao Hong's corpse was vigorously absorbing all the essences of the elixir without cessation. After pondering for a moment, Chu Xuan prepared another bucket of the corpse refining elixir and poured it into Zhao Hong's bathtub. At this rate, it might take another 3 to 5 days. Chu Xuan then found an empty room and began to practice the nether fire orb. Meanwhile, at the Black Blade security, which contrasted sharply with the Spirit Dog-occupied Haodai Hotel, the surroundings were much cleaner and tidier. The company was enclosed by iron fencing topped with barbed wire, which was stained with blood and flecked with remnants of flesh, a clear testament to its effectiveness against zombies. At that moment, a man stood at the gate. "Open up, it's Wen Yun." The gate slowly swung open, and Wen Yun strode in. 2 gaunt men approached him, giggling. "Brother Yon, did you send those 3 away?" Wiping the sweat from his brow, Wen Yun replied, "Sent them off, the Linjiang army will pick them up." "I need to see my cousin, I have something important to tell him." One of the gaunt men pointed to a 3-story building and whispered, "The manager is busy there. It's best not to go now, Brother Yon, you wouldn't want to disturb his mood." Wen Yun frowned deeply. "I must go, it's important." He quickened his pace towards the building. A tall, burly man guarded the entrance of the small building. Wen Yun attempted to go upstairs but was stopped. "I need to see my cousin," he growled. The burly man remained expressionless. "The manager ordered not to be disturbed by anyone, including you." Grinding his teeth, Wen Yun shouted, "Brother! It's me. I have something important to tell you." After a moment of silence inside the building, the sound of a desk being slammed echoed. A buzzcut had emerged from a window, cursing, "Damn it, don't you know I'm busy?" After a pause, he grumbled, "Come up then." Chapter 20, Temptation. Inside the dimly lit 3-story building, Wen Yun reached the 3rd floor. A slender woman sat in a chair, while beside her, a man with a buzz cut and dark skin focused intently on playing a video game. The screen displayed a grim and dark style, showing an armored warrior with a large shield and a straight sword battling a giant flaming titan. Meanwhile, another screen played scenes of passionate lovemaking, the source of the seductive noises Wen Yun had heard. However, Wen Yun was not surprised by the scene, he had seen it before. Others might think he was practicing or something important, but actually, he is just playing a game. That was why he didn't let people casually approach his office, because a boss who loved playing games seemed to undermine his dignity. Suddenly, a scream sounded from the screen, and when Genjian put down the controller with a sigh, "This giant is really tough." "Tell me, what is it?" he said, turning to his cousin Wen Yun. Wen Yun promptly recounted the scene he had witnessed at the unfinished building, in great detail and without omission. Wen Genjian's expression was initially casual but quickly turned serious. "High-level zombies, it must be high-level zombies," Wen Genjian said gravely. "What did that old Zen from the Research Institute say?" Wen Yun shook his head. "They said nothing, and when I pressed who had rescued them, they evaded the question." Wen Genjian sighed lightly. "East Lake City is really not a good place to be, with advanced zombies appearing one after another. Just a while ago, didn't Zhao Hong notify us that an advanced zombie appeared at the Walmart and then it vanished? What should we do?" Wen Yun asked. Wen Genjian glared at him. "What else can we do? Increase our vigilance and stay away from that area. And ask for some support from the Linjiang army. We are a force established under the guidance of the Linjiang army." With advanced zombies appearing frequently in East Lake City, we have to ask them for support. Wen Yun grinned. You're always the smart one, big brother. Just as when Gang Jian was about to pick up the controller again, he suddenly remembered something else. You came back just in time. Zhao Hong bought a batch of canned food and medicines from us. Take some men and deliver it to them. Didn't he always complain about the prices? Why is he buying now? Wen Yun was puzzled. When Genjian spoke offhandedly, the spirit hounds has always been short on medicines. Initially, they staunchly refused to buy, claiming they still had supplies. Now that they've run out, they've no choice but to grit their teeth and pay the premium. Wen Yun chuckled. Fine. I'll take some men and deliver the goods then. Go on, then. Wen Genjian, without turning his head, waved dismissively and resumed his frustrating game. Meanwhile, Wen Yun and two men climbed into a whirling van and headed towards the Spirit Hound's headquarters at the Haodai Hotel. The gang maintained several strongholds, with the hotel serving merely as their main base. Additionally, there were food supplies from a large greenhouse to the north and a small fishery to the south. Due to East Lake City's modest size and relative abundance of resources, the Spirit Hounds and Black Peak security had coexisted without fatal conflicts. An hour later, the van pulled up outside the Haodai Hotel. As one of the men started to disembark, Wen Yun hastily pulled him back. Something's off, it's too quiet. The Spirit Hounds is never like this. Wen Yong's face was grave as he sharply sensed the anomaly. It was broad daylight, a time when the gang members typically gathered in noisy clusters, playing cards or brawling. Each delivery was usually met with loud commotion from inside, but this silence was unnervingly odd, as if everyone had vanished. Look carefully, Wen Yong whispered. The two men nodded and peered around cautiously. Suddenly, one exclaimed, Brother Yon, there's a body over there, a mutilated body. Wen Yong followed their gaze and indeed spotted a body. To call it a body was somewhat inaccurate, it was merely a fragment, consisting of part of an arm and a leg. Let's get out of here, fast. Wen Yong swallowed hard and growled. The presence of body parts indicated that the Haodai Hotel had definitely been attacked. Whether by zombies or some other formidable foe, the adversary was undoubtedly powerful. After all, Zhao Hong was considered a first-level superhuman. For an enemy to have silenced Zhao Hong, their strength had to be immense. Their only option now was to flee as quickly as possible. Buzzing with urgency, the van sped away with remarkable speed. However, they had not driven far when several figures appeared on the rooftops ahead. Through the car window, Wen Yong caught sight of two towering figures, resembling moving mountains. Each of their movements seemed to shake the ground. Their faces were fierce, their appearances bloodthirsty, bearing some resemblance to zombies yet with slight differences. Accompanying them were two giant hounds, which Wen Yun recognized as Zhao Hong's dogs, Daho and Erho. High-level zombies. And two of them. Even Zhao Hong's dogs had abandoned him and now followed these formidable creatures. Wen Yong's heart nearly burst from his chest. He bellowed, Speed up, get us through. Don't stop. The driver, equally terrified, floored the accelerator, wishing he could merge with the engine to spin the wheels faster. Bao noticed the moving vehicle. The scent of living humans immediately ignited its bloodlust. Baring its teeth, it prepared to charge. Daho and Erho displayed equal aggression. Roar. But who growled low, a sound so threatening it immediately subdued the others. Bao, Daho, and Erho's voices quieted, tinged with resentment. Hun. Under the watchful eyes of the two zombies and two dogs, the van sped away. Wen Yong's heart raced. Are they following? I can faster, the driver shouted. Ugh, no. Ugh. Wen Yong vomited several times before managing to sit upright. You really need a ugh to improve your driving skills. The driver gave an embarrassed smile. Wen Yong glanced behind them. The four figures accelerated toward the Haodai Hotel. In the blink of an eye, they entered the hotel and disappeared. Wen Yong suddenly pieced everything together. He realized that the Spirit Hounds had likely been annihilated by the two high-level zombies. Zhao Hong was probably dead. The Haodai Hotel and its surroundings had become the territory of these advanced zombies. Let's get back. We need to inform the boss immediately. Ugh. Wen Yun growled. All right, I get it. Just don't throw up on me, the driver nodded. Chapter 21, High Quality Talent. Level 7 Corpse Soldier. At the Black Blade Security Company, beneath a modest 3-story building, Wen-Yun arrived yet again. The burly guard stopped him as usual. Wen-Yun shouted at the top of his lungs, "Brother, I have something critical to tell you, a matter of great importance." From the upper floor, curses and complaints rained down. "Damn it. Wen-Yun, just because you're my cousin doesn't mean I have to give you face. You've already interrupted my work twice." When Genjian poked his head out from the window, his face flushed with anger as if his arduous efforts had been abruptly disrupted. Wen-Yun bellowed, "It's about the high-level zombies." "Then come up," Wen Genjian snapped. Moments later, Wen-Yun was sitting across from Wen Genjian. "Bro, why are you still battling the Giant King? You're so unskilled, just quit it and stop wasting time," Wen-Yun said, half-heartedly. Wen Genjian snorted, "One more try, I can definitely defeat him." With that, he plunged back into his intense focus, enduring his virtual struggles. Wen-Yun sighed lightly, "Let me play for you while you listen to me, okay?" Wen Genjian scoffed, "If you can beat him in one go, I'll stop." Taking the controller, Wen-Yun navigated his character through the halls, charging to the Giant King's throne. He snatched the great sword leaning against it and struck fiercely. After several blows, the Giant King fell to the ground, defeated with a few more strikes. Setting down the controller, he looked into Wen Genjian's eyes. "Now, will you listen to me?" Wen Genjian stared in disbelief. "How did you do that? Why was that sword so powerful? Will you listen to me now?" Wen-Yun roared. Wen Genjian grimaced. "Fine, go ahead." Wen-Yun recounted his experience at the Haodai Hotel without missing a detail, his expression grave. "Really? You saw 2 high-level zombies?" Wen Genjian's expression grew serious. "Absolutely. That stature, those eyes, no ordinary zombie could possess them," Wen-Yun replied with equal seriousness. At that moment, having caught the gaze of the high-level zombie, he had felt his blood nearly freeze in his veins. If not for the van speeding away in time, he might have already become food for the high-level zombie. "This is indeed critical. We should avoid that area from now on," Wen Genjian said solemnly. "What if those high-level zombies break out? We can't just sit around and wait to die," Wen-Yun stated gravely. "Of course not. We'll have to ask for assistance from the Linjiang army and have them send some superhumans over," Wen Genjian nodded. Wen-Yun breathed a sigh of relief. "Could you have a plan, bro? You'll need to make the contact since you were discharged from the Linjiang army. Our words won't carry much weight." Wen Genjian nodded. "Leave it to me, you don't need to worry." 5 days later, at the Haodai Hotel, Chu Xuan exhaled and finished his cultivation session. Now, only 9 of the large blood beads remained in his possession, the rest having been absorbed. He sensed his danqian, the repository of a cultivator's spiritual qi located in the lower abdomen, swelling slightly and decided to cease his practice. "HM. Is there a disturbance?" Chu Xuan suddenly heard a noise emanating from the bathtub. He swiftly walked over and immediately saw a colossal corpse puppet clambering out of the tub. Having absorbed the contents of 2 full bathtubs of corpse refining elixir, its stature had significantly increased, reaching a height of nearly 8 feet. Its body was covered in bulging muscles and protruding veins, pulsing with immense strength, resembling a statue of a muscle-bound warrior. Fine white bone armor had grown over its chest, back, and joints. More astonishingly, in its left hand it wielded a bone shield, and in its right, a bone spear, both wrapped in a ghastly pale glow, clearly not ordinary artifacts. Chu Xuan was somewhat taken aback. This corpse puppet was naturally equipped with magical tools. With a roar, the corpse puppet bellowed to the heavens as if celebrating its rebirth. The other newly emerged corpse puppets around trembled, prostrating themselves on the ground, not daring to raise their heads. Daho and Oho were so frightened they urinated themselves, while only Hu and Bao managed to withstand the formidable aura. Chu Xuan stood before the corpse puppet, his gaze cold and steady. The corpse returned his gaze. After a moment, it respectfully knelt down, growling softly in a show of homage to its master. With a casual gesture, Chu Xuan summoned the corpse into his corpse-nurturing tower. A streak of black light enveloped the corpse. High-quality talent. Level 7 Corpse Soldier. Chu Xuan's eyes brightened. The innate potential of this corpse far exceeded his expectations. Born with high qualities and already at the level of a level 7 corpse soldier, it was comparable to a 7th level chi refining cultivator. Let's see what spells you possess. Chu Xuan cast an identification spell again. Golden Light, Divine Strength, Corpse Howl. He raised his eyebrows in approval. The Golden Light, which Chu also possesses, serves to enhance defenses. The Divine Strength, on the other hand, bolsters one's physical power. However, the Corpse Howl genuinely surprised him, as it is considered one of the best innate skills a corpse soldier could acquire. Upon being activated, it deals a severe blow to the spirits of all nearby enemies while simultaneously bolstering the corpse puppet itself, greatly enhancing its aggressive impulses. A corpse puppet with the Corpse Howl is undeniably a leader among its kind. As long as they are alive, the surrounding corpse puppets will continue to fight fervently until death. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Chu Xuan praised thrice, his eyes brimming with satisfaction as he gazed upon the corpse puppet. It's time to give you a name. What shall it be? You were once called Zhao Hon. Zhao, a prominent surname. Hon, symbolizing vastness and strength. Blending the deeper meanings of both, let's call you Lon. Chu Xuan nodded in approval. With a resonant roar, Lom accepted its new name. Lon, who, go out and hunt on your own. Who, teach Lon the rules, what to do and what not to do. Chu Xuan instructed. Both Lom and Hu roared in acknowledgement, then leaped away, disappearing between the skyscrapers. Afterward, Chu Xuan stored Bao and the other 6 corpse puppets back into the corpse nurturing tower. The Densian Qi inside the tower is highly beneficial to corpse puppets, which require not only flesh and blood but also a significant amount of Yin Qi to thrive. Having completed these tasks, Chu Xuan resumed his cultivation. He planned to elevate his cultivation to the 9th level of Qi refining before returning to the Mystic Azure Realm. With so many corpse puppets under his command and the newly transformed blood steel wire, his power would undoubtedly be the strongest below the foundation establishment stage, unthreatened by ordinary Qi refining cultivators. Upon returning to the Mystic Azure Realm, he would only need to gather some spiritual herbs and medicines to begin his assault on the foundation establishment stage. Chapter 22, Foundation Establishment Blood Pill, Life Soul Flower. To advance to the foundation establishment stage, orthodox cultivators nearly always require a foundation establishment pill, with only a rare few gifted enough to liquefy spiritual qi independently and ascend without one. However, these pills are exceedingly difficult to procure. The primary ingredient for the pill is a foundation establishment stage spiritual medicine known as the Dao-Caltrip flower, which alone costs 10 medium spiritual stones. Depending on the specific pill recipe of each sect, an additional 7 to 12 Qi refining stage spiritual medicines are also required. Even with these ingredients, a successful pill concoction is not guaranteed. Generally, a skilled alchemist achieving success in 4 out of 10 attempts is considered quite adept. Demonic cultivators, however, have forged a different path by substituting the Dao-Caltrip flower with the Life Soul flower, a peculiar bloom that emerges from the vital soul of powerful beings. They also replace the rare Qi refining stage spiritual medicines with more readily available alternatives, significantly reducing the cost of crafting foundation pills. These altered pills are known by demon cultivators as foundation establishment blood pills. Lacking the resources to gather the traditional ingredients, Chu Xuan had long been prepared to concoct the foundation establishment blood pill. Continue cultivating. Chu Xuan took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and resumed refining the large blood beads. Time flew swiftly, a month had passed in a blink. Sitting on the rooftop of the Haodai Hotel, Chu Xuan could not yet avoid food, so he had to pause after absorbing each large blood bead to eat. He had nearly depleted the food reserve stored in the Spirit Hound's warehouse. With a constant supply of large blood beads fueling his cultivation over the month, Chu Xuan's realm had improved dramatically, now peaking at the 8th level of Qi refining. He was just a thin barrier away from the 9th level, but despite having only 1 large blood bead left, there had been no signs of breaking through this final barrier. Break for me. Chu Xuan began absorbing the last large blood bead. Vital energy surged into his body. He roared, veins bulging on his forehead. A cultivator's personal will can significantly propel their practice. Perhaps it was Chu Xuan's intense determination, or perhaps the potent destiny surrounding him, but the bottleneck between the 8th and 9th levels of chi refining shattered at that moment. Boom! His aura exploded, dust swirling. In an instant, the rooftop of the hotel was swept clean and spotless. Bao, along with the 6 corpse puppets, was guarding the rooftop. Usually silent, they stood still. The surging aura around Chu Xuan so startled Bao that it couldn't help but roar in terror, while the other 6 corpse puppets prostrated themselves, too frightened to lift their heads. It was only after Chu Xuan's aura had receded considerably that they tentatively stood up, casting curious glances his way, like inquisitive children. Chu Xuan exhaled a breath of stale air and slowly opened his eyes. The 9th level of chi refining, he declared. Now, all I need is to fill my danqian completely to prepare for the breakthrough to the foundation establishment stage. A smile spread across his face. From afar, the roar of a corpse echoed, followed by sounds that grew louder as they approached. Within moments, Long and Hu appeared on the rooftop, each carrying a spiritual hound. Upon seeing Chu Xuan, Hu immediately bowed his head in respect. Daho and Oho did the same. Although they had not formally acknowledged Chu Xuan as their master, they recognized him as such from the depths of their being. Long hesitated, not bowing immediately. Chu Xuan's gaze turned icy as he looked at it. After a moment, he scoffed, "No wonder you hesitate, having reached the 8th level. Think you've grown strong enough to defy me?" With a snort, Chu Xuan's spiritual chi surged, pressing down on Long like a mountain. Unable to withstand the immense pressure, Long immediately knelt, the sound of its kneecaps cracking filling the air. Long screamed in agony but dared not rise, still kneeling. It had realized that its master's strength far surpassed its own and that resistance would be foolish. "Humph, rebellious one," Chu Xuan said coldly. Corpse puppets were not emotionless killing machines, they typically retained some of the personality traits of their former lives. Clearly, Long was naturally defiant. "Who is now a level 7 corpse soldier, well done. This is your reward," Chu Xuan said. He flicked his finger, sending a blood bead flying toward Hu, who caught it eagerly in his mouth. Direct consumption of flesh was inefficient for corpse puppets, they preferred blood beads refined by Chu Xuan's technique. Hu then reached out and tugged at the hem of Chu Xuan's robe, seemingly eager to communicate something. Chu Xuan felt a stirring in his heart and immediately connected with Hu through his thoughts. After a brief exchange, he understood what Hu wanted to convey. "You've discovered a den of giant wolves, and they are gathering to ambush you." Chu Xuan was immediately intrigued. Humans had withstood the baptism of psionic energy, transforming into superhumans. Animals and plants might also endure the suction of psionic energy, evolving into extraordinary creatures and flora. The intelligence of those giant wolves, evident from their understanding of ambush tactics, was clearly not low. It was likely that the psionic energy had accelerated their development. This was not good news for the human survivors of East Lake City. However, for Chu Xuan, it was an extraordinary opportunity. The wolves were intelligent and strong. Perhaps they could serve as a nurturing ground for the life soul flowers. Before returning to the Mystic Azure Realm, prepare the nurturing ground for the life soul flowers. By the time I return from the realm, the life soul flowers should be mature. Chu Xuan thought. "Where is the territory of those giant wolves?" he asked. Hu roared a few times, pointing towards a small hill to the north. Chu Xuan nodded. "Long, Hu, and the other 6, follow me. Bao stays to guard the home." The 3 zombie beasts roared. Only Bao seemed a bit aggrieved. "Let Daho and Oho stay as well, to keep Bao company," Chu Xuan gestured dismissively. Bao immediately cheered up, much like a child finding a playmate of the same age. Chu Xuan collected Long, Hu, and the other corpse puppets into the corpse nurturing tower and then sped towards the north on his flying sword. At the Black Blade Security Company, when Genjian was not playing games today but sat in the manager's office, frowning in distress. Wen Yun was also sitting on the sofa in front of him, similarly troubled. "I called you here to think of solutions, not to frown along with me." Wen Genjian scolded. Wen Yun gave an awkward smile. "It's difficult. A monster that a 6-person squad from the Linjiang army couldn't handle, and our Black Blade only has 4 superhumans, all at level 1. When Genjian became even angrier upon hearing this, "I told you to crush the psionic core and eat it, but you wouldn't." With your talent, if you were a level 2 superhuman, would Black Blade be so devoid of solutions? Wen Yong's smile grew more strained. Eating a psionic core directly, success, failure, or no effect, each had about a 1/3 chance of occurring, depending largely on one's physical constitution. If one's body was strong enough, consuming a psionic core directly was feasible. But he truly dared not. Chapter 23, The Highway, Encircled by Wolves. After a prolonged reflection, Wen Yong at last declared, those creatures precisely block the highway stretching from Linjiang military base to us. Even a small team from Linjiang forces was overwhelmed by their assault, only a single soul managed to flee to safety. I propose that we should not act with haste. The priority now is to gather intelligence, to ascertain their numbers and locate their lair. When Linjiang dispatches more troops, we shall encircle and utterly annihilate these monsters. Hearing this, when Genjian nodded his approval, a sound plan. Let us proceed accordingly. Let us take some and probe their actual strength. Wen Yong nodded and promptly set about making the arrangements. A short while later, the trio climbed into a van. They were Wen Genjian, Wen Yun, and Song Dai, joined by Teng Jinchuan. Together, they constituted all the superhumans of the Black Blade Security Company. However, the company always required someone to hold the fort. This duty was assigned to Teng Jinchuan. Yet, before the van could depart, a figure staggered towards them, pursued by a gasping, portly man. Brother Jian, he insisted on coming, Teng Jinchuan expressed helplessly. When Genjian turned to the pallid man before him and sighed gently, Zhuangqian, with such severe injuries, you should not be here. The man was Zhuangqian. After he and Sun Meng had escorted Zheng Baoshan back to the Linjiang Province Institute of Life Sciences, he had received orders to lead a Linjiang military squad southward once more to aid Black Blade security in clearing advanced zombies from East Lake City. Yet, they had scarcely traversed the highway when a pack of gargantuan wolves ambushed them. Apart from him, the rest of the squad perished. Zhuangqian, a first-level superhuman with formidable physical prowess, had managed to escape and hide, narrowly evading the wolves' pursuit and finally reaching Black Blade security. He bellowed, I must go. The brethren of the Linjiang army cannot perish in vain. When Genjian firmly shook his head, no, your wounds are too grievous. It is best you remain here to heal. Once you are mended, you shall have your chance for vengeance. Zhuangqian gritted his teeth, my gift is the wood spirit, I can scout through the plants. Are you not seeking to ascertain the reality of those giant wolves? I am most apt for this task. When Genjian and the others exchanged looks, one eyebrow arched. Supernatural talents are indeed diverse and peculiar, each individual being unique. Zhuangqian's capability to employ plants as his scouts was indeed most suitable for the mission. When Genjian nodded solemnly, very well, then accompany us, and we will safeguard you throughout. At that, Zhuangqian finally allowed a small smile to surface and boarded the vehicle. The van dusted the road behind and sped directly towards the northernmost highway leading to East Lake City. East Lake City was but a modest town, its only conduit to the Linjiang forces being the highway that spanned its length. Every instance of support from the Linjiang military had traversed this very route. Should an alternative path be adopted, both efficiency and safety would markedly decline. Thus, all impediments along this highway needed to be eradicated, including the extraordinary animals that had evolved under the influence of psionic forces. As when Genjian and his companions departed from Black Blade security, a sword's hum resonated above the highway amidst the mists. A figure emerged, Chu Xuan. Chu Xuan chose a flat segment of the road to alight upon. The highway appeared frequently traveled, with abandoned vehicles dragged to the sides. With a casual gesture, Long, Hu, and 6 corpse puppets materialized beside him. Where were you ambushed? Chu Xuan inquired. Hu roared and gestured ahead. Chu Xuan nodded and strode forward rapidly. Covering several hundred meters in the blink of an eye, he reached a pickup truck that had broken down, its tracks suggesting it had been no more than 3 days. Linjiang army was emblazoned across the truck's surface, which bore numerous claw marks. Surrounding it were signs of a skirmish and scattered blood. Additionally, he observed several patches of wool fur. Suddenly, a faint sound emerged from the woods on the right side of the highway. It seemed to be a cry for help. Chu Xuan's eyebrows raised and he walked briskly toward the source. Approaching closer, the sound clarified, it was the cry of an infant. His gaze swept through the woods, quickly locking onto a blood-stained pile of clothes. The pile was subtly quivering, the crying emanating from within. Chu Xuan hastened his steps. Long, Hu, and the other corpse puppets followed. Anyone who heard an infant's cry would feel a stir of compassion. Even the most heinous murderer might hesitate for a moment. But Chu Xuan did not. 50 meters from the pile, his right hand was already conjuring a nether fire orb. When only 10 meters away, he abruptly raised his hand and held the orb. Boom! A loud explosion erupted. Both the clothes and trees were blasted into the air, along with splatters of fresh flesh. Third. A piece of flesh, covered in hair, landed at Chu Xuan's feet. The hair was long and vigorous, clearly not human. It was, unmistakably, wolf fur. Psionics are indeed peculiar, teaching you to mimic an infant's cries to lure the unwitting, Chu Xuan remarked calmly. Unfortunately, your intellect remains lacking, he continued. There are no living humans near the highway, how could an abandoned infant's cry be so resonant? As his words fell, over a dozen figures emerged from the depths of the forest. Each one was over 3 meters tall with extraordinarily agile forms. With a light leap, they could cover 5 or 6 meters in distance. In the blink of an eye, they surrounded Chu Xuan and his subordinate corpse puppets from all directions. On a nearby boulder, a colossal wolf more than 5 meters in length and towering over 2 men stood silently, overlooking Chu Xuan. The cold, bloodthirsty gleam in its remaining eye revealed it as the Wolf King. Chu Xuan, intrigued, admired the Wolf King's robust musculature, his face breaking into a satisfied grin. This Wolf King must be a second-level supernatural animal. Among its pack, there were also several first-level supernatural animals. The rest of the giant wolves, although not supernatural creatures, far surpassed ordinary wild wolves in both size and ferocity. No wonder such a den of giant wolves stationed near the highway could ambush the soldiers of the Linjiang army passing through. As Chu Xuan observed the Wolf King, the beast assessed him in return. This human was different from many others it had encountered. Able to wield powerful fireballs and accompanied by several zombies, it gave the wolf a profound sense of danger. But after a brief contemplation, the instinct born of nature overwhelmed reason. The wolf and its pack had fled from Two Dragons City on the northwest side of East Lake City, having been starved for a long while. The soldiers they had killed 2 days prior had barely sufficed to sate their hunger. Now, with living humans before them, there was no logic in avoiding battle. Chapter 24, You have a brain, but not much of it. Roar. The Wolf King bellowed, and the surrounding dozen giant wolves surged forward aggressively. Chu Xuan stood motionless, casually ordering, keep the stronger wolves alive, kill the rest. Long, Hu, and the 6 corpse puppets received their commands in an instant. A fierce gleam flashed in their eyes as they fiercely lunged forward. In just a moment, the pack was routed. After all, most of them were not supernatural beings. But the corpse puppets crafted by Chu Xuan possessed innate magical abilities and were not of low standing. The weakest among them, whose innate magic was self-detonation, also possessed the prowess of a third-level corpse soldier. Together with Lom and Hu, these ferocious corpses made light work of the wolf pack. In the blink of an eye, the mournful whines of the giant wolves were heard. Chu Xuan glanced over casually. He noted that the weaker wolves had all been slain. The 4 that were first-level supernatural beings had their limbs broken and were thrown to the ground. Lom and Hu swiftly moved behind the Wolf King, trapping it in a pincer movement. The Wolf King was taken aback. The shift in the situation was too swift, it had thought the advantage lay with it. Yet, in an instant, it had gone from being the encircler to the encircled. Roar. The Wolf King roared furiously, stomping the ground and charging directly at Chu Xuan. It had encountered superhumans in Two Dragons City who excelled in controlling supernatural creatures, but each one was physically weak. So, it ignored Long, Hu, and the other corpse puppets, focusing its attack on Chu Xuan. In its view, killing this human quickly was the key to breaking free. With its speed, the corpses would surely be unable to keep up. After all, how could 2 legs compare with its 4? You have a brain, but not much of it, Chu Xuan said with a light smile. This Wolf King had obviously realized that he controlled the corpse puppets. Eliminate him, and the corpses would fall apart. Regrettably, he was no frail summoner like those often depicted in novels, mighty summoned beasts paired with a weak summoner. If he did not possess substantial strength, how could he possibly control the likes of Lom and Hu? Chu Xuan remained where he was, utterly still. He could already see the Wolf King's sharp fangs, the drool flowing, and the foul stench of its breath as it bore down upon him. Swoosh! A line of blood flashed by. In that moment, it seemed as though a giant club had fiercely struck the Wolf King's head. They say wolves have a skull of copper and a backbone of tofu. Their most vulnerable part is the waist, and the hardest, the head. But with sufficient force, even a blow to the head could stun a wolf. Thump. In an instant, the Wolf King was knocked unconscious, collapsing senseless to the ground. The battle had ended before it even began. Lom observed everything, promptly shelving any mischievous thoughts and daring not to entertain any disrespect. "Carry them up, take them all back," Chu Xuan said casually. Roar. The corpse puppets bellowed in unison. They hoisted the wolf corpses and the unconscious giant wolves onto their shoulders, following behind Chu Xuan. Occasionally, they sneakily licked the wolf corpses, much like children stealthily tasting sweets behind their parents' backs. On the way back to Haodai Hotel, Chu Xuan didn't ride his flying sword. After all, with so many corpse puppets to manage, it indeed wasn't feasible to use the flying sword to transport them. This time returning to Mystic Azure Realm, if there's a chance, I must exchange for a new flying magic tool, he mused. Preferably a high-quality one. Chu Xuan noted this task in his mind as he strode back. With his party's strength, they could freely stroll through the city without fear of zombie attacks. Indeed, perhaps it was the zombies that should be worried. After all, in Chu Xuan's eyes, each zombie was a potential source of blood pearls. Should any enthusiastic zombies come their way, Chu Xuan would surely thank them tearfully for their gifts. At 3 in the afternoon that day, at the border between East Lake City and Two Dragons City, a van approached from afar and stopped where the pickup had broken down. Wen Ganjian, Wen Yun, Song Dai, and Zhuang Qiong alighted from the vehicle. Zhuang Qiong, injured, was protectively encircled by the others. All 4 were extremely vigilant. Zhuang Qiong gazed at the pickup truck with a sorrowful expression. "My 5 comrades died right here. I watched helplessly as they were dragged away by the wolves. I must personally skin those beasts." Wen Ganjian sighed softly. Before the zombie crisis erupted, he had served several years as a soldier in the Linjiang army, achieving the rank of sergeant and commanding 10 soldiers under him. He could empathize with Zhuang Qiong's seething rage. The pain of watching his cheerful, playful comrades fall in battle was more than most could bear. "Take me to the edge of the forest. I can detect if any of those creatures are around," Zhuang Qiong said, taking a deep breath, his voice serious. The 3 men nodded and escorted him to the forest's edge. Zhuang Qiong placed his hand on the surface of a tree and closed his eyes. He could communicate with only one tree at a time. Branches, leaves, and roots became his eyes and ears. He could sense the memories of this tree. In places where the soil was fertile and the climate moist, the relationship between a tree's roots and its crown was almost one-to-one. That is to say, the roots spread as wide as the crown above. Thus, he could perceive everything within the reach of the roots clearly through the tree. "I hear heavy breathing, lots of it. It's those wolves." But not now, it was a few hours ago, around noon. I also heard zombie roars and intense fighting sounds. The battle ended quickly. I heard the death whimpers of giant wolves. And human voices. Zhuang Qiong's use of his talent lasted only 3 minutes, yet he was drenched in sweat, his front and back soaked. Wen Gangjian and the others were astounded. "You mean, there was a battle here a few hours ago?" Wen Ying added, "A battle between humans and the wolf pack." Zhuang Qiong nodded. "I'm certain it was a fight between humans and wolves, with zombies involved as well. The wolves likely suffered heavy losses." The 3 men exchanged surprised glances. Someone had actually taken on this wolf pack head-on and won. The leading Wolf King, it's a 2nd-level supernatural being, right? There's a 2nd-level superhuman in East Lake City who could match the Wolf King. Wen Gangjian scratched his buzzcut, his face a picture of confusion. "I've been in East Lake City for so many years, how did I not know this? The wolves, having suffered heavy losses, probably won't come out to hunt. We should search around here. We'll definitely find the site of the battle," Wen Yong said earnestly. "All right, let's split up to search, but don't go too far from each other. If you encounter danger, shout loudly," Wen Genjian nodded. The four split into three groups. Wen Genjian and Wen Yong each went solo, while Song Dai stayed with Chu Xuan. They began their search, and before long, they found the site of the battle. My God! The scene before them left them all stunned. Chapter 25, Foundation Establishment Path. They saw towering trees shattered into fragments, their surfaces charred by flames. The ground was littered with flesh and fur from the giant wolves. The four men all wore expressions as if they had seen a ghost. The pack of giant wolves was formidable, such that even well-trained Linji and army squads were no match for them. However, the carnage strewn about clearly demonstrated the ferocity of the battle. No fewer than 5 or 6 giant wolves could have caused such a splatter of flesh and blood. It's impossible. Who could have killed them? Zhuang Qiong muttered incredulously. Wen Genjian thought for a moment. Let's continue searching around this center. If any wolves escaped, there should be traces. Wen Yong and the others nodded and resumed their search. However, despite a long search, they found no signs of any wolves escaping. There were no toppled trees, no mottled bloodstains, nothing. What this implied was clear. Wen Yong swallowed hard. All those giant wolves are dead, and their bodies have been taken away. Although Wen Genjian and Song Dai found it hard to believe, they nodded in agreement with his conclusion. It looks like we've made a wasted trip, Song Dai said, somewhat relieved. No fight meant no casualties. That was preferable to any alternative. Even as a first-level superhuman, any injury could lead to infection. Now, without any doctors around, they could only rely on medicine for self-treatment. Who knew if they would survive? Wen Genjian was still scratching his head. Brother, what are you worried about? Wen Yong asked. Wen Genjian gave a wry smile. Zhuang Qiong mentioned that the wolf pack's leader is a second-level supernatural being. Besides, there are several first-level supernatural beings in the pack. That someone has the strength to take down such a group of giant wolves. What kind of power does he possess? A third-level superhuman. Zhuang Qiong immediately shook his head. Impossible. Third-level superhumans are extremely rare. Without exception, they are all leaders and protectors of various organizations. They aim to break through to the 4th level and need a lot of manpower to collect psionic cores. Why would a third-level superhuman be wandering alone outside? Wen Genjian, Wen Yong, and Song Dai thought it over. It made sense. No third-level superhuman would frivolously run about. Almost all of them stayed in their territories, employing every means to elevate themselves. Zhuang Qiong pondered for a moment before speaking. Perhaps it's just a second-level superhuman, but with an exceptionally powerful talent. After all, talents vary widely. Those with exceptionally strong talents can even help superhumans fight above their level. Wen Genjian sighed softly. Regardless, we must be cautious. The Haodai Hotel is occupied by 2 high-level zombies, and now a mysterious second-level superhuman has appeared. Our days at Black Blade are becoming even tougher. The 4 men reboarded the van, speeding off as dusk had not yet fallen. Haodai Hotel. Chu Xuan leisurely made his way back here. Along the route, he had eliminated a number of zombies and refined quite a few blood pearls. Moreover, he browsed through numerous supermarkets and shops, scouting for any edible food. Eating instant noodles every day was becoming tedious, and a change in diet would certainly be welcome. However, Chu Xuan only managed to find some chocolate. He had learned that the zombie crisis on Blue Star had been raging for over 5 years. Few foods could withstand a 5-year shelf life. It seems if I want to enjoy delicious meals there, I might have to start growing my own vegetables, Chu Xuan mused. This was not a difficult task for him. All that was needed was to set up a spirit-gathering array to draw in the sparse spiritual chi from the surroundings. Even the most barren soil could be transformed into fertile land under such conditions. This land could then be termed a spirit field. Crops grown in a spirit field would develop unusually quickly, and the fruits they bore were exceptionally tasty. As for the laborious tasks of plowing, weeding, pest control, and harvesting, these could be entirely delegated to the corpse puppets. Although dim-witted, corpse puppets, once properly instructed, were far more suitable for such monotonous and repetitive labor than humans. No sooner said than done. There was a garden at the back of Haodai Hotel, and Chu Xuan ordered that all the flowers and plants be uprooted and the soil loosened. Only then did he set about arranging the spirit-gathering array. The spiritual chi on Blue Star was extremely weak, nowhere near comparable to that on Mystic Azure Realm. But even the slightest presence of spiritual chi could be harnessed by the spirit gathering array. If necessary, spirit stones could be placed within the array to extract their spiritual chi and nourish the soil. By sunset, Chu Xuan had the spirit field ready. The field, spanning 40 meters wide and 30 meters long, was divided into several sections, each planted with different spiritual plants. Golden pattern rice, similar to regular rice but with a far superior taste. Don wheat, akin to wheat but its long-term consumption can make the body lighter and more agile. Chu Xuan, having selected various spiritual plants from his cultivation bag, handed them to the corpse puppets for sowing. Initially clumsy, the corpses soon grew proficient under his patient guidance. Not bad at all, Chu Xuan nodded in approval. Then, he ascended on his sword to the rooftop. The Wolf King and the 4 giant wolves were securely bound. While the 4 wolves were still unconscious, the Wolf King was awake, its eye flickering with a brutal light, as if it wished it could tear Chu Xuan apart 1,000, 10,000 times. Chu Xuan completely disregarded such glares. As before, he took out a small knife and began to make incisions on the Wolf King. He started with the limb joints, then the abdomen, and finally the crown of the head. The flesh from these 3 areas varied, making them suitable for the growth of different spiritual plants. In the limb joints and the abdomen, Chu Xuan inserted seeds of the soul-nourishing leaf and crimson blood fruit. Closest to the brain, the crown of the head was ideal for the life soul flower seeds. The life soul flower was a primary ingredient for foundation establishment blood pills, while soul-nourishing leaves and crimson blood fruits were rare supplementary materials. With these 3 types of spiritual medicine secured, nearly all other necessary herbs could be purchased from reputable markets using spirit stones. His foundation establishment blood pill was nearly within reach. My path to foundation establishment relies on you, Chu Xuan patted the Wolf King's head and chuckled. The Wolf King could feel its vitality being sapped by the strange plants, but it was powerless, forced to watch its own life force ebb away. As for the 4 giant wolves, Chu Xuan applied the same procedure, implanting spiritual plants within them. However, since they were only first-level supernatural beings, he did not use particularly rare plants. After completing these tasks, Chu Xuan returned to the ground floor of the Haodai Hotel to set up more formations. First, he installed a mist array. This was a mid-tier chi refining stage formation. Its function was simple, to generate a mist that enveloped both the inside and outside of the array, covering a circular area with a diameter of about 100 zhong, approximately 330 meters. This range was sufficient to encompass not only the Haodai Hotel but also some nearby residences and shops. Anyone who wandered into the mist array would find themselves disoriented, wandering aimlessly before being sent back to the entrance, perpetually unable to penetrate deeper into the formation. Next, he began to set up a gathering evil array.